I'm Pearl Whitfield, and I am going to be doing a series of readings from my new book, The Storekeeper, A Tale of Small Town Life, which is available on Amazon, starting with Chapter 1. I'll be doing it in little pieces of Chapter 1. Saturday was slower, both at L&B's and in the whole town, Ralph noticed. Summer was winding down and people were going for last vacations or getting ready for bow season. Every third truck on the streets on Friday had an attachment, a trailer with four-wheelers, a camper, a boat, a horse trailer. The little girl didn't show up Saturday. Ralph thought that Rusty looked disappointed. The big dog had headed right to the front door when they entered through the back. Ralph realized that he himself was disappointed. She was a mystery and added some spice to his day. He still didn't know her name. He had a shopping list for Monroe on Sunday. After going to several of the big box stores and having a good Thai lunch, Ralph was tired. He was getting used to the slower pace of Campbell and was eager to head home. Home. It was becoming home. As he drove the curving hills with a wary eye out for deer, he thought about Mrs. Adams. She was of indeterminate middle age, and you could see she had been pretty when she was younger. But the years had not been kind, or she had not been kind, and it showed in her face. Hard lines made a puppet chin around her mouth, and several deep frown wrinkles knitted her brow. Ralph was always amazed that some people who went to church and considered themselves Christian, while having such mean spirits, it was hard to believe they'd be welcome in heaven. He had replayed the conversation on Friday about the little girl, and wasn't sure if he could be civil to Mrs. Adams when she came into the store on Monday. It wasn't his business, of course, but he couldn't help wondering what Jesus really thought. Ralph sure wasn't going to ostracize that poor little tyke, but he didn't know exactly what to do. Nothing for now, he decided, just see how it played out. He'd also decided to give folks a month to get used to the idea of debit accounts instead of credit accounts. When he got home, he turned on the computer and printed up a sign, effective October 1st. People who wanted to start right away, of course, could do so. While he was at it, he checked his email. His niece said she was going on a road trip and wanted to stop by Campbell and see where her favorite uncle had decided to hang his hat. Ralph smiled. Gracie was a treasure. Her mother was Ruth's sister, and the women folk in that family were fine people. He wrote right back, welcoming her whenever she came. On Monday, the little girl wasn't there when Ralph rolled up the blind in the door, but around 8 a.m., Rusty left the boys in back and headed to the front door. The dark little head was there in the corner of the porch steps. Ralph smiled and let Rusty out, calling a greeting to the little girl. She turned and looked at him and Rusty, expressionless. Rusty lay down near her. Ralph hadn't swept the porch yet, so he got the broom and cleared off a few leaves. While he was at it, he checked the trash. The bins were still okay. Tuesday was trash day, he knew, and he'd talked with Joe and Son Sanitation to set up collection. Ralph had gotten a card table and 4 folding chairs while he was in Monroe. The far corner in front, opposite the cash register, had an open area big enough to set them up. He'd also gotten a few puzzles, some for little kids and some for grown-ups. There was already a rack where he sold playing cards. The box covers were faded, but cards didn't outdate. Ralph set up the puzzle/cards corner. It would work. He slid open 2 of the puzzle boxes. The kids' puzzle had a nice farm scene, and the grown-ups was a beach with umbrellas and boats and bathers. He found a corner piece, then a few edge pieces. The cowbell danged. Ralph turned to see Gloria from the senior center. "Thanks for the cake, Gloria," Ralph said. "It was fantastic." "You should come over for lunch sometime," Gloria said. Then she realized before he responded that he couldn't leave the store. "Or let me know if you want me to bring you lunch. The menu's in the paper every week. We have a new cook. Seniors pay $5, but anyone can come for $7. Ralph realized Gloria had no idea how old he was. Not that old. Ralph had retired early, having saved enough to be home with Ruth when she needed him. They were a frugal couple with sober financial habits and owned their house outright. That would be fine. I'll check the paper. But I don't want to put you out. Ralph hesitated. Oh, it's no trouble, Ralph. We have those covered boxes with partitions to keep the food separated, and I usually stop at L&B's for something. It's a good thing you're here. Campbell would have missed a grocery store for sure. We all wondered what would happen when Loretta finally closed. Gloria smiled. Her front teeth were quite crooked, but her face was pleasing, and Ralph had noticed she had a friendly way and an encouraging comment for everyone. He hadn't seen her come in, bent over the puzzle as he had been. Did Gloria speak to the little girl? Gloria, what can you tell me about that little girl who sits on the porch steps? Ralph ventured. But Gloria had opened the refrigerator, and the hum drowned out his quiet question. Ralph was glad that Mrs. Adams didn't come in till late afternoon and the little girl had gone by then. He busied himself stocking till Mrs. Adams had gathered her groceries onto the counter. How are you today, Mrs. Adams? Did you go away for the weekend? Campbell seemed like a ghost town on Saturday. Ralph steered the conversation in a direction he hoped was safe. Mrs. Adams looked down at the counter. When she looked up, he saw tears in her eyes. Oh, Mrs. Adams, is everything okay? I'm sorry if I said something wrong. It's okay, Ralph, Mrs. Adams sniffled. It's just that this weekend was our anniversary, and it's always a little sad for me. Joe and I would go to the lake every weekend all summer and into the fall till it got too cold. He loved to fish. So do I, but I haven't been since he died. Ralph was stunned. He didn't know what to say. How long has it been since Joe died? 10 years, but it's still hard. He was the love of my life. We went steady in high school, and we were together. She hesitated. After a quiet moment, Ralph asked, What happened? In a strangled voice, Mrs. Adams managed, Joe had a load of gravel on the dump truck. He was bringing it home to fix the driveway, but as far as the police could figure out, something had jammed. Joe must have climbed up to free it. She stopped. Ralph could hardly hear her next words. The whole load opened up on him. He was crushed. I found him when I got home. Silence vibrated through the empty store. The refrigerators began to hum. After a moment, Ralph cleared his throat. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how awful that must have been for you. Yes, Mrs. Adams agreed. I still have nightmares. In fact, I couldn't sleep all weekend. That's why I'm so late shopping today. It was dawn when I finally fell asleep. Ralph pulled out the account books and wrote down Mrs. Adams' items. Here you go, he said, opening a paper bag and packing the groceries. Is that too heavy? No, it's fine. Thanks, Ralph. Mrs. Adams hoisted the bag and opened the door. Ralph watched her walk across the porch to the handicap ramp. She must have parked on the side, he realized. Well, Rusty, Ralph said, scratching Rusty between the ears. Rusty had come over during the conversation and stood next to Ralph, leaning into his leg. Now he sat on Ralph's feet and lifted his nose high so Ralph could rub his chest. You never know, do you? Rusty groaned contentedly. Ralph took a deep breath. Suddenly he was exhausted. He walked over to the card table and sat down in one of the chairs. He just looked out the window for a while, missing Ruth. She'd have liked it here, Ralph thought. She surely would. To be continued.